Today I'm taking my $50 workbench and giving it some upgrades. Hey guys, how's it going? A little under a year ago, for me anyway, I built this budget workbench because I was setting up a workshop in my basement and figured my old IKEA desk workbench would have a better home in there. If you want to see how I built this workbench, you can check it out up here. Since I've now had this and have been using it for a while, I have a better idea of what I want in a workbench. That's not saying it's the perfect workbench by any means, but it's a step in the right direction. So I didn't end up recording this segment, but the first upgrade I did was to remove the two 2x12s and installing a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood underneath them. I had initially left the middle open for clamping purposes, but I found that I wasn't using it, and I could use this space as a bit of a tool well instead. I also took the opportunity to shim the workbench to the height of my table saw, so now I have a larger flat working surface than I did before, which also makes things a little bit easier. Later on I decided that the 2x12s should have the edges rounded over to prevent them from getting chipped out for one reason or another, which I just did with my block plane. And another quality of life upgrade was just to put a couple screws into the side of the bench to hang a couple spreader clamps off the workbench, just so they're always handy. My next big upgrade was drawers, but I didn't really feel like making drawers at the time. Luckily, some friends of ours were getting rid of this big wardrobe, and it just happened to have 3 drawers that were pretty much perfect for the size that I needed. So instead of them taking it to the dump, I took it and started salvaging what I wanted out of it. I took the old hardware off of the drawers and did a quick and dirty repair of the areas that needed it. It's a workbench, it doesn't need to look pretty. With that done, I take the drawers to the table saw and then the reciprocating saw and cut the curved drawer front off. As nice as these curved drawer fronts are, I don't need them. It doesn't have to look pretty, but I at least want it to match in style. With the curved fronts taken off, I grab a scrap sheet of plywood and cut them to the height needed to be the new drawer fronts. And after a quick sanding, I screw them into the drawer. They're a little bit wide, but whatever. Unfortunately, my workbench legs are a 1/2 inch too close together for this to work perfectly, so with my pull saw and a chisel, I take a chunk out of the inside of the legs to inset the full extension drawer slides. I figured this was easier than rebuilding the drawers, since at that point I might as well have just built new ones. It probably would have also been easier to actually measure the inside instead of trial and error, but eventually I got all the drawers installed. Since I didn't have a proper vise in my shop, I figured I should remedy that as my next upgrade. I picked up this record quick release vise from my friend Evan over at Beaver Workshop. I'll put a link to his Instagram page in the description below. Overall, it was a fairly easy install. I just had to do a bit of disassembly and raid my stockpile of random hardware I've squirreled away over the years. I managed to find some bolts that I think were from an old IKEA entertainment stand we don't have anymore, and a bunch of washers. With the holes marked out and some of the washers to act as spacers. With the holes marked out and some of the washers to act as spacers, I was able to get the vise installed flush with the top of the workbench. With the side of the workbench top being compromised, not that this ever holds a whole lot of weight right here, I installed another leg right into the middle of the side, up against the drawer slides, and reinstalled the remaining half of the side support here because I do like having the quick access clamps here. My next upgrade took a little bit of thought. Back when I built the bookshelf for my mom's closet organizer, if you missed that video you can check it out up here, I had thrown 2 2x4s on my workbench and table saw to act as supports while I cut the MDF into shelving portions. This made the 2x4s kinda useless for much else, so I just kept them on the ground under my workbench, where I kept kicking them, and that was getting annoying. I thought if I was able to bolt them to the side of the workbench in a way that would be both out of the way and under the table saw wing would be best. So to see how well this might work, I clamped a 2x4 onto the side of my workbench, and basically the only issue I ran into was that the 2x4 ran into the angle adjustment of the table saw. But then I just needed to cut a few inches off the end and it was good to go, so I moved on with the build. I basically measured the same distance from either end of the workbench into the center of the workbench and marked the center of the 2x4 with the square. Then with a 1/2 inch auger bit, I drilled through the 2x4 and the side of the workbench, and just to make sure this should work, I throw a 1/2 inch dowel through the holes. Surprisingly enough, they fit. Then using the same 2x4 as a layout, I traced a line along the edge of the 2x4 and set the opposite edge along that line clamp the 2x4 into place, and drill through the original holes through the top of the workbench, and again, the dowels fit. To make setting these up as easy as possible, I set the dowels flush with the top of the 2x4 and pre-drilled through the sides of the 2x4 and into the dowel. Then I screwed through the dowel with a 3-inch long screw, making sure the screw was in the middle of the 2x4 as to not hit it with the circular saw, or at least less likely to hit it with the circular saw. And with that done, I just need to whip up a second one and we're good to go. Now within seconds I have my dedicated cross-cut supports up and secure in their location. I really like how this worked out because now I don't have 2x4s on the ground where I'm always tripping over them, and they stay where I want them when I'm in the middle of a crosscut. And so far that's everything I've added to the workbench for now. I'm sure I'll come up with other things as time goes on, but that will be another video once I get a few of them done. And on that note, I'm going to call it a video. So thank you guys for watching, and if you like what I'm doing here, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to reading them in the comments section below. And if you want to see more up-to-date projects, you can follow me on Instagram at John the Shriner. Maybe there'll be a couple early peeks at the next workbench improvements. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video, and have a good one.